welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia. I'm your host, Patty Baronowski Schneider. Today I'm joined by Matthew Carauddo, a former actor, director, and stage combat artist for 30 plus years. And on top of that, a licensed fencing instructor for 15. So Matthew's a creator, author, designer, main illustrator, and you'll see that on this amazing artwork behind you, and primary voiceover for the artist for Diamond Dragons. So now that I've blurted all that out, now, Matthew, tell us a little bit about yourself that I didn't already mention.
Well, thanks for inviting me to the show, first of all, Patricia. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, those are part of the things that I do as the author and the creator of this series. And I'm proud to say I've been happily working away on Diamond Dragons 5 of all things, at least as of the time of recording of this video. And I'm about, I want to say 33,000 words and something like 24 illustrations into it thus far. And of course, I'll be releasing that book later in 2025. And that's sort of been the plan. 2021 was book one, 2022, book two, and so forth.
That's actually pretty cool. I'm like just fascinated by the artwork behind you. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
people have no clue what all is involved in doing this sort of stuff. I mean, you could see the details and all of that. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, well, I will say this really quick about covers in general. And yes, this is essentially Diamond Dragons. Whoops, I guess I got to scoot this way. For Diamond Dragons 3, as you can tell by the Roman numerals in the background. But what I try to do with cover design, how do I say this the best way? When you see a movie poster,
Right.
what a lot of people don't really think about, but it's going to happen on a subconscious level, is mood, the spirit of the piece, sort of is it a drama? Is it comedy?
Right.
Is it
Scary, yeah.
is it a drama comedy, a comma
Right.
drama? You know, what is this? Is it fantasy? We want, and you might think, well, come on, Matthew, those will be obvious. If you see Lord of the Rings, you automatically know. I'm like, well, that's because everybody's already familiar with it. But when something new comes out,
Right.
how is it that you discover that, for example, going back to the 80s, Raiders of the Lost Ark, how do you figure that out? Like, Raiders of the Lost Ark could be anything, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Until you physically
But
see it. Yeah.
right, when you see the style in which the things are placed, and there's certain these graphics and this thing or this caricature or character, if you will, it gives you that kind of instantaneous, not like you need to study it for like, oh, I got to look at this for 6 minutes to figure out what it is. You
Right.
kind of need to be able to glance and go, whoa, that looks cool. That's pretty much all. Then you might go, oh, that looks cool. It seems like it's sci-fi. It seems
Right.
like it's a rom-com. It seems like it, whatever. I mean, whatever. So in this case, that's what I'm doing. However, from my perspective, for exemplary kind of artwork, that it should go beyond that. So there's like hidden details in all of this cover that if you did study it closely,
Right.
you would not only learn more about the general storytelling of the whole series,
Right.
but you'd get a few specific hints that are coming. And
Right.
that's obviously in addition to reading the whoops, wrong way, the whatever you want to call it, the back of the book
Right.
synopsis, if you will. I
Right.
usually just call it that, the engaging synopsis. And on that last note, I feel that that's exactly what that synopsis should be. It should be engaging. It
Right.
shouldn't read like, this is what's going to happen, and
Yeah.
this is this, and there to there, and this person was named that. Or you're like, no, don't do that. You want that whole like,
Yeah. It's got
you
to
know,
grab you in there and
war
make
was
you want to read
upon
it.
them,
Yeah.
and without the power of blah 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 blah, there was no
Right.
way that these people would survive the end of the world.
Right.
Can they survive this? You kind of want that movie
Right.
announcer feel, and I'm not trying to be cheesy, but the
No,
whole,
I get
they
it.
took away his family. They took away his dreams. Now he's out for revenge. And it sounds ridiculous what I'm saying right now, but you get the point. Is like
Yeah.
you want it to sort of reach out, grab you, draw you in, and basically tell you, hello, this is fantasy. Hello, this is a romantic comedy. Or hello, this is a love story that's like
Right.
an epic, legendary, like, oh, it's so romantic. Like you need to feel that. You're right?
Right. Yeah, because like with any book, first thing that's going to get my attention is the picture on the front. But then I'm going to check
Exactly.
out the back, and that's going to tell me, do I really want to read this or not? So I get it. You want the intriguing picture, but then you want something that's going to kind of pull me in and say, oh my God, I got to read this because I got to find out.
Exactly. I mean, right, title is important, and also what I like to call the tagline, and maybe some people will say, well, what is that? Is it the subtitle? I'm like, well, those are slightly different, but either way, and not all books or movies will have a tagline, but like, let's think back to Ridley Scott's Alien, okay? Just the very first one, right? The whole in space, no one can hear you scream. You're like,
Oh my God. Yeah.
okay, well, I guess this is going to be, a horror kind of thing.
Right.
It doesn't sound like aliens. They're
Yeah.
fun, they're friendly, they're goofy.
Yeah, I'm
That's
not bringing the kids to this one, right?
and there's nothing wrong with making those two different styles of
Right.
films, right? That's when we have like Aliens Incorporated or I don't know, Monsters Inc., excuse me,
Right.
right? Like we know when something is supposed to be taken less seriously and
Right.
when you're trying to be like, no, I want to evoke fear,
Right.
horror, and like trepidation for people where all they see is this tiny little spaceship
Right.
in, empty space and then like these demon-like things coming from the side and you're like, okay, great, it sounds and you're like, well, that's what, like now you know what it
Well,
is. So like
yeah.
you want the title to punch people in the face and you want the tagline to hit them really hard too,
Right.
So and then again, that's just my perspective from it. Some people may disagree and they may say, oh, this is what I do with my books and this is what
To
I
each
do
his
with my
own.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
To each his
that's
own.
fine.
Yeah. So now your background spans acting, writing, directing, and martial arts. So how did the diverse skill set influence the creation of your fantasy adventure series, Diamond Dragons?
So that's a really good question, and I get that a lot too. I would say that there's some intersections with all of those kind of skill sets, and
Right.
why? Well, let's think about just films in general, which is basically just storytelling in a very visual and oral way. Oral as in our hearing and whatnot.
Right.
So right, you have beautiful scores of music. I mean, hopefully beautiful, right?
Yeah.
You have the sound design, like when we think back to even legendary work on Star Wars, people often forget about Ben Burtt, who was the sound designer on that. He was also to kind of set the tone in case people are like, "Who's Ben Burtt?" In the movie Wall-E, he did a huge amount of the sound design, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the voice of Wall-E going. I think. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure, but I'm pretty certain that that was Ben Burtt's work. But anyway, right, the design of the lightsaber sound,
Yeah.
was just became legendary. And
Right.
even Darth Vader's breathing became relatively
Right.
legendary. And why? Why does it matter? It's like, think about it. Sound is I would argue it's more than half the experience, as is the music. When you
Right.
place those together, again, you can build that mood. Just
Right.
changing the music in one scene of a film
Yeah.
to this track or
Right.
this song or that song, whatever, can mean a world of difference.
Right.
So, those are really important. Now, what about fight choreography? Well, certainly, what do we see in most movies? There's almost always some kind of altercation, a chase scene, if you will, where people are
Right.
tripping over things or even throwing punches and running away from each other, grabbing swords, whatever. Or with war films, there's
Right.
guns a-blazing and so forth. So it's sort of like, well, that's a huge part of storytelling too. You're telling stories through violence,
Right.
and maybe some people, will, I hate violent films and they're terrible. I'm like, hey, Shakespeare was pretty violent with most of his stuff. So,
Just
don't blow
talked it
smoke up a
properly. But
storyteller's
yeah.
butt. I
Yeah.
mean, we're literally just saying that this is the day that something happened. It wasn't the day that Patricia and Matthew got along and everything was fine. It was
Right.
the day that Patricia was like, that's it. I'm stealing every last penny that guy has. And then I'm clueless up until a certain point, and then I find out. And now suddenly it's like, spy versus spy or something. People will love that. They would be like, that's so amazing. Like they're, undercutting each other here
Right.
and this, and then he steals it back from her and she doesn't know it. And it's like, this is crazy, but I don't want to say it's none of it real world, but it's like these are heightened circumstances that we're always seeing.
Right.
And so there's a lot of intersections with that. So,
Right.
the work that I did as a fencing instructor, in case people didn't, realize that, in addition to me just competing, and I have my share of golds and silvers and bronzes, nothing Olympic, by the way, I
Mhm.
want to make that clear. But, I competed and won tournaments
Right.
and placed second and third and
Still
whatever.
pretty cool.
Like it wasn't just me, screwing around. I also taught classes. So you learn something not only about yourself, but about just how to communicate information to other people when you spend so much time teaching,
Yeah.
right? And then, with the acting and the writing, all of these things are part of storytelling,
Right.
Patricia, right? I mean, other things people often don't really think about. It's like, let's just take the wonderful Keira Knightley. What a great name, by the way,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Keira always got to be in these films where her hair was always done so wonderfully,
Right.
right? And people often forget that. They're like, oh yeah, they gotta have a hair and makeup person or team in
Right.
often cases just to make sure that the hair is period or it communicates whatever they want.
Right.
So it's like, well, sometimes they're with wigs, sometimes it's the makeup is a certain way, sometimes they're like, they need to look sickly, so let's get them
Right.
very pale and white, and we need these pock marks on their
Right.
faces or whatever. So like all of these things enter into it. And again, costuming, so I could go on, but like all of these things are important in storytelling. And when it comes
Right.
to like me writing the books, I want to describe these things.
Right.
Describe when they go outside and it's a warm,
Right.
beautiful day and the sun is beaming down through the trees in that really epic, light beams everywhere
Right.
way, and you feel the warmth and you can kind of smell it on your own skin. Like when
Right.
you're at the beach, the difference what your skin smells like when it's
Right.
on sunshine as opposed to when you're freezing cold in the
Yeah.
winter. Like that sounds maybe a little weird maybe to some people, but it's like these are the things that are visceral. We describe the sounds, the feelings, the temperature, in some cases,
Yeah.
and that's what moves people, I
Yeah.
feel. When you for example, like to use like Lord of the Rings as an example,
Right.
there's just some scenes where not just with Peter Jackson's wonderful films, but with Tolkien's words,
Right.
where it describes the absolute what's the word for it too? Just the destruction of the soul that's
Mhm.
going on to Frodo the whole time. And if you don't really put it into context, you're like,
Right.
it's the ring around his neck that's doing it.
Right.
And that sounds impossible for us to understand as regular humans because we're like, well, if you put on a necklace, it's not exactly going to give you anxiety and depression. You're like, I know that, idiot. The point is that it's representing this kind of weight that's
Right.
crushing him in a spiritual way, in a physical way, in an emotional way, and just psychologically.
Right.
How do you describe that without it sounding cheesy and
Right.
wrong or not necessarily invalid, but untrue, right?
Right.
Non-verite, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, the way Tolkien did it, from my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the world kind of resonated with it all the way back in, what was it, the 40s is when he started that series, maybe the 50s. I'm not 100% sure, but it was quite a while ago. Really powerful. You feel it emanating from the pages,
Right.
from my perspective.
Right.
And I like to do that with my work. I want to
Right.
grab you, draw you in, and if I want you to feel
Right.
despair,
Yeah.
abject despair, I want to hurt you badly with the words. And if I want you to feel, triumphant and be like, yeah, like I'm going to try to drag that out of the words and
Right.
get you into it. And, if a character finally reaches the villain and just cracks them in the face, you're like, yeah. And you're thinking, oh my God, why am I doing this? It's just a book. What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? I'm reading this book and I'm all excited. This isn't even real. These dragons, they're not even real. What the hell's wrong with me? It's like, well, that's what we enjoy,
Right.
right, Patricia? We enjoy the storytelling because it feels real.
Right. But that is amazing because it is true. Like it's harder for writing than it is for watching a movie because you're seeing it, so you can kind of see it. But like you say, you want them to feel through the words. If you just said, "Yeah, he got up, went for breakfast, and got in his car, went to work," okay.
It's
But
not
if you said,
interesting.
"Well, yeah," if you kind of said like the car was so hot, he struggled getting in, and oh, this jerk off on the road, and you're
That's
now I'm like,
interesting.
yeah, now
You
it's
see the
like,
difference, right? Right, and we often used to say this, and this is something when I taught tiny acting classes for like middle schoolers, nothing long. It was just mostly summer stuff. But here's the point: is sometimes I would often try to work this into all my lessons. I'm like, this is the day that something crazy and wild and visceral happened. This is not the day you did your laundry and you went to work and you paid your bills and everything went hunky dory. We want it where today a bomb hit the school, when I would often say to the kids, and I'd be like, how would it feel if that happened right now and all the alarms are going off and there was chaos or whatever? That would not feel like a normal day.
Right.
You would not be ready for that. And I'm like, however, it's dramatic, and then it's possible that triumph and tragedies can kind of poke out of those things.
Right.
And then that's what we're really seeing. By the way, another level, Patricia, is too something that I regret that I see in a lot of Hollywood films today. And again, this is of the time of this recording. Maybe it'll change in years to come, but sometimes some of the heroes that are written in, they don't have any more struggles. They start off powerful, they kind of remain powerful, and then they just get more powerful. I don't like to see that as much anymore. What I really like is the kind of, I'll mention a person's name here, Joseph Campbell, who's wrote something called The Hero of a Thousand Faces, and also a book called The Hero's Journey. People can look him up, Joseph Campbell. Anyway, he would talk about the kind of basic journey, this kind of hero's wheel that he would make of the certain very important things that make a story a true story, like one that you will remember. And this harkens all the way back to stories like Beowulf. We're going way back, you know what I mean, with heroes' journeys and whatnot. And that's that the hero in the beginning is a nobody. They start off as like a blank slate. They don't really have any skill sets of any import or acknowledgement, and they have to rise to the occasion. And in fact, they're going to get punished. They're going to get punched in the face, whether it's proverbially or literally. They're going to get knocked down, and they're going to have to figure out how to rise to that challenge. So they will suffer, they will fail, they will, pardon my French, up, a lot. And their mentors, which usually come in the form of an old wise man or an old wise woman, whatever. I mean, whatever. In my case, it might be an old and wise dragon, which is true. It's one of my characters. He's an old, gold, blind dragon, Artemis.
Okay.
So right, we all have these things. We have the Obi-Wan Kenobis. We have the Morpheuses from The Matrix. We have the Gandalfs, from Lord of the Rings. We have the, what's it from Harry Potter? I want to say it's Dumbledore. That sounds right.
Yeah,
I think that's
Dumbledore.
right. Wizard. And I mean, I could go on. We could name all the different ones. I'm trying to remember. What was the one for Hunger Games? Katniss had... I want to say it was Hamish, which was played by Woody Harrelson, sort of, was her mentor, the character's mentor. And so those are real important to these heroes' journeys. So I'm hoping that we see more of this in Hollywood, that instead of them just making these super powerful hero, always super powerful, all the way to the end, it's more like we need to see more of these heroes that we can relate to.
I was just going to say you can relate to it better that way, because that's life. You could be great today and knock down tomorrow, and that's just life. How do you could either wallow in the dirt down there, or you can get up and fight your way back up. And mentors, like I said, back in the day was never a thing, but they're becoming more and more now. So I could see how people could totally relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, right, it's so important, Patricia. And here's another thing is, even if you don't have a mentor, it's really like, how are you going to deal with the situation you've been dealt? I will say this real quick too, and then ask whatever you like. I don't mind. Is Denzel Washington, who I'm sure everybody's very familiar with, in addition to him being an excellent performer and just an exemplary artist, I saw a wonderful video of his where he was sort of teaching a small theater troupe of kids, young guys. I mean, not super young like middle school, but probably high schoolers, I want to say. Okay. Just a short video clip that you could see they were filming off the cuff or whatever. And he had this something to say, which he said in many times before in many of his speeches. But, it makes a point. He says, now look, I've been blessed to making hundreds of millions of dollars. I can't take it with me, and neither can you. So it's not what you have. It's what you do with what you have. That counts. And we all have different gifts. Some of us are going to be in front of the camera, behind the camera. Some people are here to touch people with their performance, whatever. So it makes a really good point that it's like, it's what you do that counts the most. And I feel that we need to see more of that with these kind of heroes' journeys. Like, how do the characters handle like when you put it on film or even in the book that like they just lost everything. Now what are they going to do? And it makes you think, oh my God, if I was in that situation, I would just fold up and die. And
Right.
but what if the character doesn't do that, and instead they move forward and they do something to figure it out, and that you kind of feel, oh, that is kind of logical. Like that could work. I could see how that could
Right.
possibly work. Even though it may be fantasy and it may be dramatic, you might
Right.
say that's still possible. This person
Right.
got up and said, I will keep going,
Right.
as the old Churchill, or was it Roosevelt? No, it was probably Churchill who said, when you're in hell, keep going.
Right.
Right?
But you
Don't
feel
stop and
that,
smell the roses.
yeah, not right now. But you feel that emotional roller coaster again there too, because you're like, oh, they did great. Oh no, God, they lost. So the emotions, it's funny, but it's not funny. But I watched the Beetlejuice movie, the new Beetlejuice on
Mm,
television. And
okay, I haven't seen it, but I mean, you gotta love Michael Keaton. He's just an exemplary performer.
well, the
But go on.
crazy part was it was the second one and it had the same characters. And I really thought that it was going to be phenomenal. I was a little disappointed, but the
Well, that's
ironic part,
unfortunate.
yeah, but the ironic part was we didn't realize when we rented it on TV that it was for I forget the term it is, but for deaf people. So there was a woman in the
Oh,
corner doing sign language. So at first we were kind of like, oh, that's going to mess up the movie. But from what I understand is because I know somebody who teaches sign language, they
oh,
said that
cool.
you're taught to really give emotion into everything you do because if you just, it's like talking
If
and
you
saying,
just
yeah,
sign the words,
yeah,
they're
and you're
just
just
the
like, yeah,
words.
we just went there and it was all fun but so the woman, she made that whole movie like amazing because it's just one person, but the emotions that were coming out of everything she did, I was like, oh my God. So yeah, so getting people into the emotional aspect of whatever you're reading, that is really what draws people in. So I think that's amazing.
No, that's an excellent observation. I mean, especially when you think of, I mean, here's another way of looking at it. So, I have never done like professional voiceover acting for Hollywood productions,
Mhm.
but I've done my share of VO, not only for my own projects, but for other people's. So
Right.
here's the point with it is, what people often don't think about is that when an actor or a performer, whatever you want to say, whether it's a very famous person or just you've never heard of them before other than voiceover, when they have to use only their voice to
Right.
communicate whatever it is. Well, now you have to think of it in a different ways. You go like, well, that's wonderful that they're so talented and boy, they have such a cool voice. I'm like, yeah, but did you ever think about how stripped they are of they obviously can't use their eyes, they can't use their nose, they can't
Yeah.
use their mouth as in their lips and the way they can't
Right.
their teeth, you can't see you can't see their hair, you don't get to
Right.
see any costuming, their makeup, nothing. You have to rely on the voice. Now, someone might
Right.
argue, oh, but they have a cartoon character, so later they can match it up. I'm like, yeah, but often, all too often, if you're doing VO, you are not going to see the actual imagery of it for the
Right.
most part.
Right.
Maybe at a very high level, they will say, hey, we have all the animation, and here's some previs that you'll look at while you're recording your
Right.
lines. But all too often, if you're doing VO, that's it. It's your
Yeah.
voice will communicate that or not,
Yeah.
right? What it is that you're trying to
Right.
communicate. So it's really important that you understand vocal acting. And
Right.
when is it that we're going to put emphasis on a word? When is it that we're going to be this close to the
Right.
microphone? Why would we have a distance from the microphone? I talk
Right.
about this a lot of times when I'm talking to other artists, and some people, they're just blown away by me even bringing it up, and I'm like, what are you, crazy? I mean, like, think about the difference with a long shot, like a wide angle where the
Right.
person's like just barely in frame, but they're in action and they're doing something. And then
Right.
when you have like an extreme close up when they're literally this close in the camera and you can just see their eyes or their face, it's a
Right.
completely different mood. And the
Yeah.
same is true of the voice. When
Right.
you're super up close to the microphone, it communicates a different mood and message and
Right.
feel. And
Yeah.
when people are kind of a normal distance, pretty normal. And when they're really far away, you get another feeling altogether. So
Right.
all of these things are important, Patricia. They all communicate, drama,
Right.
emotions, whatever you want to, what do you call it? And it's the difference between whether someone's going to cry at a film,
Yeah.
or be, elated and pumping their fist, or just simply be, entertained, if
Right.
that's all we're going for. We don't want to really preying anybody's emotions in one
Right.
direction or other, right? We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings today with this
Mhm.
movie. No, it's true, right? Like
Yeah.
some movies you don't want to make the audience get killed here. We don't
Right.
want to hurt their feelings really bad because then they might be like too sad, and oh, this movie's so depressing, I can't watch anymore. And you're like,
Right.
okay, I guess you shouldn't be watching Schindler's List, right?
Exactly.
So, right? An
Yeah.
exemplary film which still contained comedy.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. So anyways, yeah. I mean, obviously, clearly, I can go on about these things because I'm passionate about
Yeah.
this 30 plus years of work that
Yeah.
I've been doing, and
Yeah. That's
I've tried to
amazing.
plug all of it
Right.
into Diamond Dragons thus far 1 through 4, and hopefully when I finish 5 and 6, people will be able to experience those as well.
Right. I was going to ask you about the 5 in a minute, but I was just going to say with the voiceover, I am amazed by that. Like I just learned today, here we say it was how old when I learned this, that from Beauty and the Beast, I think it was the teacup, like who actually plays that voice? I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. But you're right. They're in this enclosed room by themselves. And
Yeah.
I love when you see like them filming that because they have no clue they're even being filmed, but they have to be so emotional into it. Like you say, close back, because you could see a cartoon, but unless you have emotion in what you're saying, you
It's
got
going
to
to become
bring it out.
meaningless.
It's amazing though.
Yeah, I'll do two shout outs with this too, and hopefully you'll appreciate these two. You can always look up their names, and you might be completely shocked at what their body of work was. So two shout outs. Most of these guys too, more popular back in the '80s. So
Okay.
there's Frank Welker, wonderful, just legendary voice in the voiceover community. Anybody who's watching who knows anything about VO, though, as soon as they hear that name, they'll be like, I know who he's talking about. He's most well known for doing Megatron of the old school Transformers
Right.
cartoons. However, he did a multitude, like a plethora, throng, if you will, of voices. He was Fred from the what's his Scooby-Doo and the Scooby-Doo campaign.
Really?
I don't know what it is. I forgot. But you know what I mean. He
Yeah.
was Fred, the cravat wearing, jock
Scarf.
guy
Yeah.
back in the day, and he did a monstrous amount of other voices. He may have even been Scooby-Doo, I'm not sure. But
Wow.
he was also, of all things, the Tiny Toons voices. So he'd be like, that kind of thing. And he was of more recent years, there was this series for children called, I want to say it was Bubble Guppies, and he was Bubble Puppy, I think. So he was playing a little doggy
Mhm.
guy. And so when people think of it, they're like, I can't believe that's the same guy. The guy who played Megatron, going, You have failed me for the last time.
You do
That
that
kind of
pretty
thing. And then
well.
he goes,
You can't get me.
you're like, how can that be? How is that the same person? And you're like, that's what voiceover is, bro. Like you're not there to just be like, I'm a villain dude, so I'll just be a villain dude. Like, you go, okay, have a little range, son. So that's kind of thing. And then the second guy who unfortunately he passed away many years ago, Chris Latta. And Chris Latta, he was another legend in the VO community. And I won't go into all his stuff, but holy cow, that guy, whenever they said they had footage of him in the box, all of them, they said, God bless Chris, he was wonderful. That guy put everything. He was physical, he was moving and waving his arms, and he would sweat like you never knew. Like this guy, you want to talk about VO? Chris threw mud at the microphone like he was, he was physical. Like it's just incredible. Like what the hell, man? So, shout outs to those guys, Chris Latta and Frank Welker.
Nice.
Chef's kiss, as they say.
But I think that people are starting to finally realize like that's actually a talent. Like I saw in America's Got
It's a
Talent,
discipline.
they actually have people kind of sing in the various voices.
Of
They've done
course.
Scooby-Doo, they've done Mickey Mouse, like just in the voice. And it's finally recognized that this not everybody could do it, and to be
Well,
able to
yeah,
do
I
it, it's
mean,
like, wow.
I don't want to say it's pretentious and presumptuous for some
Right.
people to say that, but I'd be like, look, you can't talk if you haven't even done it even once. Don't tell me that. And I mean, I will say this is, over the years, Patricia, believe me, I gotta tell you, different subject, but same concept. Fencing. So many people, Patricia, mostly adults, unfortunately, would come to me. And they're so excited, and this, the other, and I'm like, here it comes. Oh, I saw the Zorro movie, and I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Take one lesson from me. At the end of the lesson, they're exhausted, they're sweating, they're tired, they were overwhelmed, we weren't doing well from their perspective, and all this kind of stuff. And they're, oh God, it was just so hard. I just don't know if I can do this. I'm like, you don't know if you can do what? They're, oh, it's just, I don't know. I'm not a very good fencer. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like,
That's why you're
but
taking
why would
classes.
you say that? I'm like, no. You've had one 30-minute lesson on fencing. Why do you think that you would be an expert at it? Or do you think you're an expert? And they're like, no, I feel like I did badly. I'm like, well, I mean,
You
I wouldn't
started
say you
somewhere.
did badly, but if you think that somehow that this one lesson has now like leveled you up into this position where you could just, go to a tournament is just ludicrous. That'd be like someone taking one math class and saying, hey,
I'm Einstein.
Albert Einstein, get the hell out of my way. You'd be like,
Exactly.
are you crazy? Like, not even a carpenter would say, well, I've done a few nails in this board. Hey,
I got this. I'm building my next house now. Yeah.
right, right. But so you go like, look, all of these things take discipline, consistency, deadlines, creativity, reflection, and repetition. And you got to do that stuff over and over and over. I didn't become the fencing instructor and athlete that I became, which I'm not trying to say that I was some massive dude or whatever, but it's like, I worked for many years, like sometimes 6 days a week. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes 6 days a week, just to become relatively competent and good, as a good fencer. I was not a dun dun dun, the best fencer who ever lived. I was not that guy, but very few people can become those. Very few people can become Robin Williams's, Robert De Niro's, Kate Blanchett's, Warren Buffett's, if you will, one of the richest, people, whoever, Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Carl Sagan, not many people are achieving these kinds of levels of things. It takes work, so I always laugh if anybody tries to say, oh, it must be just so nice to be let's fill in the blank, an actor. I'm like, oh, really? Why is that? Like, oh, well, it just must be easy. Just go on there and memorize lines. I'm like, so that's what you think it is. They go on and they memorize lines. That's what acting is? Are you crazy?
No,
You
but
gotta be kidding me.
even with I forget which movie it was, but Lady Gaga was in one. Can't remember, like Chanel or something. But
I don't know.
I don't remember. But she had to actually go to Paris and live there and learn the language and see how the people. She lived there for like a year just
She had to
to
study.
understand it, to be able to try to play it. And she played it great. But I mean, obviously, had she really been from there, she probably could have played it even better. But it's not something that anybody could do it. No.
Well, yeah, I mean, just on another note with this is, right, accents. I mean, I think some people believe that when they see an actor in a movie and they're doing an accent, I mean, and especially if it's not a comedy and they're like doing a period piece. So let's put the comedy aside because that can be fun. You can be like, I am Inspector Clouseau, and I will find out who the murderer is immediately. You're like, okay, we're doing a caricature, and that's great. That was Peter Sellers back in the day as Inspector Clouseau. But when they're doing like an actual, like, even if it's a subtle accent, I mean, I think a lot of people think that the actors just automatically know how to do that, or they just do it on their own, which is semi-true, but most of the time they have a professional dialect coach.
Yeah.
And in some cases it can be very specific dialect, very specific. Like if we just I'm just picking one out of like the earth is it's a pretty big place. Ireland. I mean, you've got all sorts of Gaelic and Celtic and this thing and that thing. And no. In this village, if we're doing a movie in this village, their dialect is really weird. They elongate this once. Nobody else does that. Nobody. You got to know how to do that. Otherwise, someone's going to pick up on it. They're going to see the movie and they'll be like, it's shite.
Yeah.
Something,
Yeah.
right? Someone's going to say like, it's a shite accent. I can't do it. But right, it's like it's a thing,
Well, when people get like that, it's like if I could only be as perfect as you, my life would be great, But
it's silly for people to think that because also, and this is another point. I mean, I suppose we're going on some tangents, but I don't mind speaking about production in general. Actors, in a way, are not just themselves.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, I was one time the governor of California, but I'm not just myself as the actor. I have, of course, a team. Of course, I have the makeup artists. I have the people coaching me. They're saying, okay, Arnold, I want you to do this. They're telling him, okay, Arnold, we need this, that, and the other from you. I want the line to have this kind of emotion to it. Oh, okay, not this way. Okay. There's going to be a whole bunch of different, like, back and forth going on. So there'll be all sorts of people involved in their careers, So it's like I mentioned Keira Knightley earlier. Keira Knightley is not just Keira Knightley. It's her and her entire team that eventually sprang up once they went, well, this is an actress. We got to get behind her. We need to give her promotional artist, makeup artist. We need to get her with dialect coaches. We need to support these people. Same thing with Natalie Portman. One of her first breakout roles was in the movie called The Professional, also known as Lyon, with Jean Reno. It was directed by Luc Besson, who's really well known, obviously, in the movie film industry or whatever. What a beautiful film that was. I mean, dark and deadly and violent. But Natalie Portman was only 14 when she filmed that. And the kind of role that she was portraying was really like way out of that ballpark. Like it was amazing that her parents were there alongside her the whole time saying, okay, it's okay that she does this, but holy cow, the dark subjects that were involved. I mean, basically her characters, or the character that she portrayed, her entire family gets murdered by drug dealers. Her baby brother, too, who was like 4. Again, this is a character, so it's not real, but she had to portray that despair.
The emotion,
where there's an epic scene where she's sitting there crying, and she's like, they killed my baby brother. You think I care about all those other ones? It's like, what the hell did he ever do to anyone? He was 4 years old. All he used to do is sit and cuddle with me and watch cartoons. And you're like, ow. And again, I'm obviously not portraying it on purpose with this, the heightened level of it, but you can imagine that, okay, if you're 18, 20 years old, okay, but she's 14 and has to convey that and also not be damaged by conveying that. That's something people don't often think, Patricia. What happens when you're portraying Hitler? What happens when you're portraying an evil, I don't want to use the wrong words, but a guy who abuses, females?
Because you have to put yourself in their shoes.
And then get the hell out of that when you go home, and you don't bring that with you, with this. I will say this real quick, is there was a interview that I just saw recently with Christopher Walken, Christopher Walken, everybody's very familiar with him. And the interviewer asked him a question, is there ever a character you play where it really, got into your head and you had trouble not taking it home? And he kind of said, oh yeah, there was one, he got under my skin, that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of like, people don't think about that. It's like when you play a psychotic, sociopathic, deeply disturbed murderer, what the hell? If you want to be real about it, you do have to dig into that. But then if you also don't want to be psychologically damaged, you need to be able to be like, what's my exit strategy?
For real. I don't know.
How do I not end up embedding some of those qualities in me, and then them sticking like glue to me forevermore or whatever. And maybe some people say, oh, that's an exaggeration, Matthew. I'm sure actors have their way. I'm like, hey, you're talking to a person who was. I did get to portray a Nazi soldier a long time ago. I had to deliver a monologue to a live audience where we brought up the house lights, and it was as if that I was telling them that we were going to gas them. It was harrowing. They brought in Holocaust survivors. I mean, I'm truncating this whole story very much, but it was, you could not even hear a pin drop, during that whole. It was insane, and the emotional content that was going on while I was delivering that and picking people out in the audience, and like I was using my eyes to try to connect with different people. They hated me for real. Like I could tell they could almost bleeding through into me as an actor. They almost probably hated me as a person, which was a good thing and bad thing. As
good
you
thing
can
while
imagine.
you're on stage, bad if you're leaving and they're still coming in.
Well, and Patricia, oftentimes people, when Robert De Niro was doing all his films, I'm sure a lot of people thought like he's this kind of tough gangster, to himself kind of thing, but very violent or whatever. And you'd be like, that's the characters he's been portrayed, because he's got that look, he's got this voice, he's got a certain way with his eyes and everything, and it just works. But he's also obviously an exemplary, actor. He did a movie called, I want to say it was called Stardust with Michelle Pfeiffer, and he played a complete goof in that. A complete goof. Did you ever hear this film?
No.
Yeah, he plays a duturu, as we like to say.
I love when like there's one girl. Well, I don't know if you ever seen the show Yellowstone, and the woman Beth on there. She's such a biatch in this show, but I'm told that in real life she's like such a sweetheart. It's like, oh, I'm nice to know that she's not like that in real life, because I'm like, oh my God, people probably have a death wish on her. But
They
won't go.
they usually are. Usually, all the bad guys are. There was several men in the movie Heat, again with Robert De Niro and also Al Pacino, another good example of a guy who's just a wonderful guy, but he usually plays these, give me all you got, Hoo-ah! All this, wow, okay, Al Pacino, you're crazy. But in real life, he's just really calm and collected. But anyway, there's two of the villains in there, and they're just, ugh. But in real life, you see their interviews, you're like, oh, they're the sweetest guys. They're so nice. And they're always like, yeah, I remember after I do this movie where I was threatening a kid, So every take when they call cut, I'm like, are you okay? Like, I mean, I love you, man. You're cool.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Well, right. It's really, really hard. I heard that happen in Harry Potter when, who's the actress? I should know this too. She's such a wonderful guy. Emma Watson? Yeah, Emma Watson, who portrayed Hermione. When she was a little girl, Helena Bonham Carter, who played an evil witch character, I don't remember the name, Bellatrix. Yeah, she's named after a star. That's what I guess J.K. Rowling named them all after stars or whatnot. Okay. But anyway, the character Bellatrix was just, throttling Emma Watson, pretty much strangling her and screaming at her, and the thing was she was, I'm gonna kill you, whatever it is. And she said just so often, like, I had to whisper to her, are you okay, Emma? Everything's okay. And she was like, I'm fine. It's like you don't really think about that.
Where do you draw that line? Yeah.
You see these movies and you see characters punching each other, quote unquote, strangling each other, and doing all these violent acts, and you never think, I wonder if that actually truly psychologically people up. And you're like, yeah, you got to check on that stuff. You got to make sure that people are strong enough, they're prepared for it, they're like, I know the difference between my role and what's really going on. And also when safety, sometimes physical safety enters the ball game, and that's super crucial. We all learned a hard lesson again on this production of Rust. Do you remember hearing about this entire story with Alec Baldwin? Super unfortunate, hyper unfortunate, hyper unfortunate. The what's known as the armorer, basically the person who's handling all the weapons. Right. Super unfortunate. Like they put it in the hands of this young lady who was, in my opinion, probably not the right candidate. The director also allowed this to happen, and ironically and sadly, the director herself paid an ultimate price for it, and it was really, really unfortunate. It's almost like we had not learned lessons from another movie back in the 90s called The Crow with Brandon Lee, who also, because of lack of safety, lack of discipline, lack of care on set, was subject to the same problem. He died from, there was debris in a, called a stunt weapon, but it was a real firearm meant to eject a blank. Well, in the case of a blank, what happens is there's a boom but no ejection, or there's supposed to not be. But if something is in the chamber, like a piece of debris, it will go out. And unfortunately, that's what happened to Brandon Lee. So I know this is a lot of tangents, but it's like, right, there's a lot of things that people don't appreciate about explosions on set, or violence on set, or just whatever, the stunts. People are harmed in this. Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double was crippled permanently from the waist down for a stunt that he performed on the Harry Potter films. This is not an opinion. This is a fact people can look up. And, it must have been really hard for Daniel to handle that, to live with, oh my God, my stunt double's fucking crippled just because I was playing a cute little wizard kid in glasses. Are you crazy? Like, what happened? But the stunt guy was pretty much like, hey, it sucks, but he had the presence of mind and strength and resilience to say, this is part of the ABC's stunt work. Like, I took a risk, and this was the 1% chance, and I rolled a 1%. You know,
It is true. People have no concept of what goes on, and they should appreciate it.
maybe now they will. If more people see this footage, they might be like, "Hey, I don't know about that Matthew guy. He seems like a real idiot, but."
We'll have to take into consideration going forward. Now, I want to go right back to your book. So, the Diamond Dragon series, it's a set of fantasy adventure world. But what inspired the setting, the characters, and the themes of your books?
That's actually a really good question too. That doesn't always get asked too. A lot of things, I would say. One of them was I kind of in the back of my mind, I don't want to say always wanted to write a story about dragons, but it was something that kind of, entered my mind somewhere when I was in my, I don't know, 20s or 30s or something. However, I knew at that time, I'm like, I'm not capable of crafting that. It's just too big. It's too big for me to do it at that young age. So fast forward, I'm not only enjoying fantasy fun games and adventure stuff, and novels and acting at that time and different productions, doing the fencing, all these things. But finally, again, fast forward through all these years, basically I just decided somehow in like late 2017, I want to say it was, where I was like, I want to try tackle writing the screenplay version of what I think I want to call Diamond Dragons. And it really just kind of come to my mind for the title. And then I had like this kind of vision for the ending. And again, I won't reveal what that is. Obviously, it would be kind of silly. But I was like, wow, like that could be powerful. But now I really got to do the work. I can't just live off of one little moment and pretend that that's a film. So I kind of did what my training would tell me to, which is I then said, I need to make a cast of characters. And I need to have a reason for those characters to exist. Like, what's their purpose in this film, in this story? Which one of them stay to the end, which die, in the process of making their moves, and they sacrifice themselves for hero X or Y? What happens? Why do they survive? Why do they not survive? Whatever. It's important. It's sort of like set the structure and the sort of outline of these things. So I proceeded to do that. And all the while I was telling myself, I'm like, if this sucks, I'll just stop. I won't continue. But I found myself like, no, this is interesting. That's like when I started going like, yo, my wizard guy could be blind. That I could work with that. A blind wizard-like dragon. I'm like, I want him to be a gold dragon. That sounds excellent. I know this and this and this. And, ooh, I need this as an ice dragon. And he'll be this way. And he'll be this type of character. And I'm like, oh, we need the patriarch. We need the settled kind of grandfather dragon who in a way could be like, and if people are familiar with this movie, and Dances with Wolves, one of my favorite films of all time, like Ten Bears, which, people be like, what's that? I'm like, you'll have to see Dances with Wolves, but Ten Bears was a kind of a minor character in retrospect, but he was like the ultimate patriarch, where he speaks last, and then at the end he's kind of like, that's all we will say for today. We will talk about this matter another time, and you're kind of like, damn, well, there you go. He has the last word, and he's like, we will speak more of it, or it's like, that's the end of it, or whatever. It's just like, I was kind of basing all of my different characters off of things not only I'd seen before, but then working them into a way where I'm like, I need to obviously make it unique and fresh and fun and interesting, and how do they all tie together, and what's the through line of this entire thing? Am I going to do more than one? And I kind of always had intentions to do more than one. So even as far back as when I actually moved from making the screenplay and developing it, and I'm kind of saying too much here, but like I hired a vocal cast just to do a read-throughs. It's a long story. I mean, I didn't have lots and lots of money, but I said, hey guys, I want to get some VO artists in here, and let's record for these characters. It'll be fun. We'll have a good time. So we did that with a screenplay. That was all private stuff too. I didn't like release that to the public, but I did make some like pre-visualization videos where I was able to use some voice work from not only myself, but other actors to voice different characters and whatnot. So that's something that people can enjoy online for free, of course. There's a lot of free materials on the website, which of course is diamond-dragons.com, and people can kind of see sort of like the journey that I kind of went through doing it. But essentially, Patricia, I drew on all my experience and said, like, this is a powerful story. This is something I want to tell. And not only that, it's kind of like, if I could step outside myself, I want to be like, if I wasn't me, would I look at this and be like, this is awesome? And the answer was yes. So I feel like that's actually more powerful than me going like, oh, well, I just think it's so cool. And so I wanted to make sure that if I stepped aside and go like, no, it's not. It sucks. It's bad. Like, fix it. And by the way, that's really important. Being able to take notes from people is something you learn all throughout acting and directing. You're doing both sides of that. The director, we give the notes to the actors in order to make the whole production and them better. It's not to cap on them and to be like, Patricia, you suck, ha ha ha. It's more like, Patricia, I love these. Your delivery was fantastic. The only problem, you are way too far deep upstage. I need you to come all the way downstage. I want you to be intimate with the audience. If you can almost step on the front row's toes, it's okay to do that. Do you got it, Patricia? And I got it. Okay, you write this note down. Right. Like, these are the notes that sometimes you give for theater, or sometimes you tell an actor, you go like, on that one, I want you to be way more subtle. You're doing that line really, I want you to be a lot more like delivery, very, very ominous. Ooh, okay. It's just a different style, right? Yeah. So it was important for me to, while I was making, this journey and writing the lines, I was thinking, what will they sound like? When is it that they're having an argument and it comes to a head and it's very like tense, and then someone's like, all right, shut up, and everybody's suddenly tick-tock, tick-tock, you just hear it, right? And it goes like, we will do the plan as written. And then that's it. You'd be like, whoa, when is it that we have those moments? Or when is it that the pace has to be like a machine gun fast? Right. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So like, these are all important things. And I wanted to check myself at every level and be like, I don't know about this scene. I think I can cut all of this. I don't need any of this. Do I need any of this? I don't need any of this. And I would just, I'm more than happy. I've been more than happy to do that in my own work for a long time, So I don't know how to really explain, that in more detail, but like, I wanted to do this because when I started on going, dragons, ooh, this is not a bad idea. I like the title, Diamond Dragons. It's so cool. Like, I know so many ways I can go with this. Is it going to be good though? Let's find out. And then once I discovered after writing, the first kind of different scenes to it, sometimes I wrote them out of order too. Like, I wrote the end first, obviously, or not obviously, but that's how I prefer to do it, Patricia. I want to know, what is the conclusion to something, so that I have a clear goal on how to get my characters there without it being a wandering mess. There needs to be reasons for why the characters need to do these things, not just because it's dramatic and cute and fun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, but that makes sense, because then it gives you, as you're progressing, you could say, okay, so now I'm already planning for part 2 because I could see where this would fit in. And
Precisely. And I mean, that's the thing is, I feel that if people are writing a story and they don't know where it's going, then it's like, then how can your characters know where they're going? Now, that's my perspective. A lot of people might say, now, Matthew, I don't do that. I never plan. I just write and I just type words and things, and then epic stuff happens. I'm like, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But like, if people ask my opinion, I quote the first lines in my own book, which is, as soon as you open the cover, I mean, not counting the tagline, you open the cover to book 1, and you see a poem underneath it. You're like, oh, what's this? Just 6 lines, 3 rhymes. And it's like, before I start, I must see my end. Destination known, my mind's journey now begins. So when you read that, you're going, okay, this guy already sounds like what? That sounds kind of ominous. What is this? But that said, it's really just telling you some immediate kind of thoughts. It's like, before you begin something, it's kind of important to know, what is your destination? Like, I'll put it to you this way, Patricia. When you get in your car, do you know where you're going?
I should.
Usually, right? Now, someone might say, oh, I go on joyrides. I'm like, putting the joyrides aside, and also, wouldn't you say that the joyrides are usually 5% of your car rides, right? Not 50, right? When you get in your car, you're going to the dentist, you're going to work, you're going to the store, you're going to the train station, you're going to the airport, whatever. You already know your destination. So now the question isn't about the destination, it's how do you get there? right? And maybe someone goes, that's not that epic, Matthew. It's just a road. I'm like, I know, but think of it in terms of the dramatic structure. We know at the beginning of Star Wars, the first film, 1977, we get very quickly, Luke's got to blow up the Death Star. We know it.
Mm-hmm.
How is he going to do that? That's more important. No, in Empire Strikes Back, it's the same kind of thing. He's got to face Vader. How is that going to go, though? We know in Lord of the Rings, right away, Gandalf comes in, is it safe? Is it secret? And then he's like, the ring must be destroyed, Frodo. And he's like, well, then we'll we'll throw it in the fire. He's, no, we cannot do it that way. We must take it to the fires from whence it came. It's like, where's that? In the fires of Mordor. And you're like, well, what the hell does that mean? You immediately know they're going to the volcano, right? So if someone were to say, well, in the beginning of Fellowship, we immediately know the end. What's the point of watching the story or reading the story or enjoying the story? I'm like, it's because you don't care about the destination anymore. You know the destination. What's more important is how are they going to get there? How are they going to do it? What obstacles are they going to meet along the way? If Patricia says, Matthew, by the way, great interview, I had fun with you. I am going to build my own house. I have no idea how I'm going to do that, right? So then you're going to have to find all those steps along the way and see if you can eventually suddenly look around and go, I'll be goddamned, I finished my damn house. Like, how did I get here? How did I get to the destination? Well, I guess it's because I did have a plan. Like, I put some stuff into place. I started working on the little details and all that stuff. I did one step up the staircase, one at a time, and then finally reached the top. Instead of trying to climb the whole staircase in one bound leap, you don't do that. Yeah. Like, who's going to do that? You're not going to be able to make that, So, like, same thing, even going back to me with the fencing instruction. Like, you got to understand, Patricia, at one point when I had the other students, oh, but Coach, I suck. These would be a lot of the kids. And I'll be like, at one point, Coach had no fencing experience. And they're like, what, Coach? What are you talking about? I'm like, think about it, son. I'm like, I didn't come out of the womb knowing all this. Right?
You'll start somewhere.
If I had to learn things, you bet that the despair you're going through of being frustrated with this fencing move or this, I'm like, do you think maybe Coach had to go through that? And they're like, oh, I guess so. Wait, you mean you had trouble with the beat attack and the feint attack? I'm like, yeah, even to this day. Like, I still don't do those actions perfectly, man, but I make do. So what I'm getting at, right, Patricia, is, right, like, I had to break all this stuff down one step at a time. I had to outline all of these things, and I had to make sure to know, do I have a competent ending? Is this going to be a powerful ending of the story? I don't want to end on a whisper with any of these stories. I want to force a story along where you go like, this is just a carbon copy of the first one, only a little bit different. I'm like, oh God, like, don't do that. Like, we already know how that works with Hollywood films, and that's just, I don't want to do that. My stories, each one is different. There's a bunch of powerful thematic underpinnings interwoven within the whole series, but throughout each book. And each book begins with a quote on the front cover, essentially its tagline, and all of those mean something. The first one is time. The second one is wisdom. The third one is courage, and the fourth one is reflection. So.
Nice.
I might mean something with all those. You never know.
We'll only know when you read it. So how could people find the books and find out about you and all that stuff?
Right. So the only way, really, to find out about my work is to visit the website, diamond-dragons.com. I don't have them out on, big, huge sites or whatever. I just don't think that's the right move for these kinds of things, especially because there are so many beautiful illustrations in them. There's 350 plus non-AI, by the way, I want to say I don't do any AI at all, non-AI illustrations throughout the course of the first 4 books.
That you did yourself, right?
Most of which I did myself. But I also, people, if they want to learn about, hey, didn't you say there was other artists involved? I'm like, yeah, on the website you'll see I credit the folks with that. But for the most part, I'm doing the majority of them. I would say 90%, something like that. 95, I don't know, maybe 89%, whatever. But it's quite a undertaking. You know, I do all the editing, all the formatting, you know, the cover designs, you know, for the most part are just me. And the videos in particular, I do those all myself. And those are very time consuming, but also rewarding. You know, these teasers, if you will, these trailers, you know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. I do one for each book. And then there's chapter artwork teasers for each book as well, which of course just flash up and fade into different images that you kind of, wow, what the hell is that? And like, oh my God, that's a castle being sieged by what the, and then it's gone. And then you might see, you know, an epic shot of some dragon. You're like, oh wow, they look like they're just in despair, you know, or another one looking triumphant, you know, with something amazing. And it's just for people to then taste the work, and then they can make the judgments on their own and say, is this a rabbit hole I want to go down? You know, do I want to traverse the portal of fire, as I often say with this? It's not I wouldn't say it's a series that people would take lightly. In other words, it's not quick reading. You know, each book is around, I don't know, 120,000 words. You know, some are more, some are whatever less. You know, so those are the kinds of things that people would need to understand. And I highly recommend the paperback or the hardcover versions. Obviously, more so the hardcover, not because I'm going to make more money. I don't, actually. It's all pretty even keel. But because of they're in color. You know, with the paperback version, only the covers are in color. And, of course, the illustrations are all in not monochrome. They're in grayscale, if you will.
Okay. Very, very nice. I can't wait to see the movies when these finally come out.
That is not probably going to happen. I mean, again, that is not only another can of worms, it would be millions of dollars and probably thousands of individuals involved. And I mean, do you have those resources? I do not.
Not me, but you never know if someone else watching this does. So
I better watch out then.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Matthew Carauddo. So thanks for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the channel. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia, talking with some of the most brilliant minds on their journey to success and their recommended strategies. Please leave your feedback and visit pristineadvisors.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, suggestions, and anything else you'd like me to cover. Together, we can make success happen for all.